Hi, I'm Mark Gaylor. I'd like to show you how I work with flare in post-production. Here I've got an image open which has got some really nice flare running through it. Sometimes flare is a problem for photographers because it ruins our shots, but occasionally, as in this image, the flare actually adds a certain style to the image. Okay, so let's take a look at how I've added this flare in post-production. It comes courtesy of these two layers which have both been placed in screen blend mode, plus a final adjustment layer to control the tonality. Okay, so without the flare, I'll just hold down the Option or Alt key and then click on the background layer so we can see the start file. Okay, now the flare applied in post-production works well when the light source is just off to one side of the frame or is actually inside of the frame, such as the sunlight in a landscape image. Okay, now this image doesn't have any flare running across the lens, probably protected by a lens hood. But occasionally when the lens hood is off or the angle of the camera is tilted slightly more towards the sun, we get that classic lens flare look. Okay, so I'll just put the effect back on so you can see that. And obviously we can control the amount and position of this flare when working in post-production. Okay, let's take a look at another image where I've added flare in post-production. And again, what I'll do is I'll just hold down the Alt key on a PC or the Option key on a Mac and click on that visibility icon so we can enable my post-production flare. And this is again coming courtesy of two flare files that I've created. Now, it is possible to create flare inside of Photoshop. Okay, it's one of the filters inside of the render, and here we have the lens flare option here. It is, however, a very artificial look, and so what I've done is to create some flare files. Okay, as I said, if we're looking at this image with the flare, and this gives some lovely classic colors and some little hot spots where the light is bouncing off the elements inside of the lens. Okay, let's take a look at my flare collection that I've created. Okay, so I'll just come to the File, Open. And here we have a range of 20 flare files in the horizontal file format. I've also duplicated these in vertical format just for ease of use. And if we just select all of these, we can have a quick preview. Okay, I'll just hit the spacebar on my Mac to preview them. And as we can see, here are all these flare files. They're, again, as I say, they're created naturally in the camera. Well, I've created a space where I can just capture the flare and no actual subject matter, and we can see this more analog look of this flare rather than the digital look that Photoshop creates through that filter menu. And we have a variety of ones where the flare is creating some interesting color effects and lighting running across the elements of the lens. We also have some where the sunlight appears in frame. Okay, and we also have a couple where we have LED lights that are creating the flare running across the light. Okay, so a nice assortment of flare files that I've created that I can draw on when creating flare in post-production. I'll just kill that and cancel that. Okay, let's take a look at how I actually create this flare from scratch using one of my actions that is available from markgaylor.com. Okay, so I'll just open up the Actions panel here, and inside the ESP Flare action folder we have 4 options here, applying a single flare file, 2 flare files just for added color and effect, and we also have a couple of options where we can add an aged photo look, which just yellows the highlights and creates thinner blue shadows inside of the file. Okay, we'll start off simply. We'll just go for the single flare option here and then just click on the play action button. And we have this help file or dialog that opens up, and it says it's asking me to browse to the ESP Flare folder. This is all of the 20 Flare files are available with the download, and they've all also been duplicated in vertical format as well, just for ease of use. Okay, it's inviting me to select one of the flare files, reposition or resize, and then hit the enter key. Okay, so I'll continue with this action, and I'll select one of the flare files here. Okay, so I'm going to select the perhaps the number 6 for this particular image, and we'll simply hit the place option. Okay, and this one doesn't need resizing. If it does, then if your format of your image is slightly different to the format of these flare files, you might just need to do a little bit of careful repositioning or resizing, as I'm doing here. And then once that is in position, we just hit the return enter key to continue that action. The action places the flare file in the screen blend mode, and then applies the automated levels adjustment just to correct any final tonality. Let's just collapse that so we can see that flare running through that image, giving us a little bit of color and a few artifacts running through that image. Okay. So that was a reasonably simple approach to adding a flare file to this image. Okay, so let's take a look at another option here. Okay, this time we've got a portrait. We've actually got a window in the background, but what I'd like to do is simulate the light source coming through this window and creating some flare on the camera lens. Okay, so the way I'm going to do that is, again, we'll play my single flare action and then just hit the play action button. Again, it's inviting me to invite to that flare folder. Okay, so we've got the horizontal. Actually switch over to the vertical files, and we're looking for a flare file where the sunlight is in shot. Here I'll choose flare 18, and then we'll choose place. Okay, and again we have a slightly different format. These flare files are in 3:2 format, which is the native aspect ratio of most digital SLRs these days. So usually they do create a good fit. So what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to drag this out so it creates a good fit for this particular image. Now it is possible, if you want a perfect alignment with that window, is just to come over and place that flare file into the screen blend mode. This helps us locate where the window is. I can just drag that a little bit higher and a little bit to the left in order to create alignment with that window over there. And now what we're going to do is hit the return enter key to continue and complete that action. Okay, and again, if you haven't already placed that into the screen blend mode, the action does that for you. And again, we've got that corrective levels adjustment there. Okay, now what we can do is, if we want to just shield some of this flare from this guy's face, what we can do is just select that mask that's been added by the action, and we can just come in and paint. This action actually selects the brush tool for you and selects a lighter grey, so we can just come in and just restore some of that subtle detail inside of that face there. Okay, so there we're creating a little bit more detail in the focal point of that image. And again, showing you before and after, holding down the Option key on a Mac or Alt key on a PC, just click on that and show you a before and after, creating some stylized flare in post-production. Okay, so let's take a look at how we can apply double flare. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll just remove all of these layers and start from scratch on this particular image. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to come down to double flare, and then just hit the play action button. And again, browsing to the folder, again we'll go down to the flare pack and choose the horizontal. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to choose number 1 here with the lighting on the left, and click place. Now if you actually like one of the files where the sunlight is on the opposite side, then we can just come into the bounding box of this flare file and just hit flip horizontal and move that light source to the different side of the frame. I'm going to go back because the light source in this particular image is on the top left hand side, so I'm just going to hit the return enter key to apply that. It's now inviting me to apply the second flare file. Okay, so we're going to come over and continue with that action. And this time I'll select number 5 and proceed to place once again. And again, just moving that into position and like so. Just make sure we're covering all of that frame and then hit the return enter key to continue. Okay, now we've got our 2 flare files there. Again, we can create a shield for this by just clicking on any of these layer masks here. And I'll just reduce the size of the brush here and then just paint over to restore some of that detail there in the primary subject matter. And again, on the other flare file there. Okay. We've got a slight issue with some of these rocks, which perhaps are just a little bit too dark for me. So I'm going to create a second levels file here. And what we're going to do is just hit the output level slider here, just to weaken up these dark tones. Okay. And what we're going to do now is we're going to invert that layer mask, and then come in with a brush with white as the foreground color. I'll just raise the opacity of this brush and also increase the size, and then just wash over those rocks just to kill some of that dark tone, so we have a nice consistent look inside of there. Okay, let's take a look at how we can also create the aged look. Okay, I'll just remove this one from these layers and start again, this time with the single flare and the aged photo look. And I'll hit the play action button. Okay, and we'll select one of the flare files. I'll select number 4 and I'll hit place. And we're just going to flip this so the sunlight is on the opposite side. So flip horizontal. Some minor adjustments to size just to make sure we've got good coverage, and then hit the return enter key. Okay, and the aged photo look comes in as a separate levels adjustment, and I'll just hit the tab key so we can look at those faded colors. We've got slightly blue shadows now and slightly yellowing highlights to this image. Okay, so that completes my post-production look at adding flare in post-production, which is a lot more controlled than trying to capture it in camera.